Everyone still looks uncomfortable.
Perhaps they're all remembered that old saying, power corrupts.
Hello and welcome to Second Officer Slog. I'm your host, M. With me is regular host, Jackson.
Hello.
And we're here for a very special, very stupid episode. Jackson, what did we decide to do?
We decided to read some Star Trek comics.
And I told you to just kind of pick a comic from literally just from random. And you did that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We had a list of comics that are available to us at short notice, and I basically ran my finger down, found a miniseries because we didn't want to jump into an ongoing, and we knew we wanted it to be TNG era. So I just picked one. It is called Star Trek Next Generation: Perchance to Dream. It is a 4-issue miniseries.
Yep. This is published by Wildstorm Comics. It came out in 2000. It takes place. Oh, if you want to buy this, I did not check availability on digital storefronts, but it is in a collection called Enemy Unseen. That is this and two other Wildstorm comics. This takes place in the year 2371. We're gonna start adding that just so I don't really have a good mental. I know that it's in this era where TNG and everything takes place, but I don't have a good mental map of years, and I just want to build that for my own sake. And so this, if you don't know, 2371 is after All Good Things, the end of Next Generation, and before Star Trek Generations. This means this is a very weird transitional period for the Next Gen crew.
If you have been listening to our other episodes, we are not watching episodes. We are literally just diving into this comic and going through this journey of what happened in between All Good Things and Generations.
Yeah. We're doing these off the cuff. We literally read these last night, and we were like, let's just do the episode. These are going to be short. They're going to be irregular. You can follow along. There's going to be an image gallery up when this episode goes up.
Yes.
You can just click to that and see the panels that we choose. This comic has a lot of really bad panels.
This comic was written by Keith R.A. DeCandio. The pencils were Peter Pashomis for most of the issues, and the inks were Lucian Rizzo. For issue 4, there are also 2 extra credits, to the point where they just kind of get last names because they had to fit 2 credits in. There's also Benefil, that's the last name, and Martin. Those 2 people had... independent comics in the 90s, Wildstorm. Turns out, if you're getting a licensed
2000.
comic...
Jackson 2000.
It's the 90s. This comic is the 90s.
So why don't you tell the people at home what happens in this comic?
So, let's begin our journey. Where does our journey begin? It begins with Data walking through an empty Enterprise, monologuing about how he's going through the Enterprise and he's feeling emotions, and that's weird. And we discover that Data is dreaming.
Data is there's an episode where Data dreams, and that's an established fact that Data has a dream program that Data's been accessing more and more as time goes on. Data's dreams do not include Data having emotions, and thus the comic is already stupid.
Well, no, that is not meant to be normal. They know that.
No, because the inciting incident of why everyone's having weird dreams hasn't happened yet.
Then why? Okay, well, this is the preview.
This is why I told you this comic is already stupid. Also, just a nitpicky thing, but I said I was going to be this person. Data mentions over the past 7 years, the average number of sentient beings on the Enterprise has been an average of 1,008 people. That's too few people. That's way too few people by 200 people.
I mean, that's how many decks of the Enterprise do you have?
26, pretty sure, top of my head.
And those decks are huge.
If I remember correctly, the number is usually 12 to 1,300. But I have so many tabs open, I'm not looking it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Data's already getting facts wrong. This is I was like, is this comic really? Oh, worth pointing out. I'm not even gonna get to the other thing because it was dumb. But worth pointing out, Data is wearing the Generations/early DS9 uniform in his dream.
Yes, so the comic is set on the Enterprise D, before Generations, after All Good Things, and the fact that Generations was just made in some kind of production disaster that led to only half the cast sometimes wearing Generations uniforms, and sometimes wearing the old TNG uniforms. This just assumes that that's a regular part of day-to-day life in this era on the Enterprise, which is crazy. It just decides to go with it and have that be a thing that happens in a comic where you can draw things, and I hate it.
Yeah, so like Geordi is always wearing his like traditional TNG uniform, and so is Worf. But like Picard and Riker and Data and both of the women, they all have the Generations uniform.
It doesn't make. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Except for one scene where someone clearly wanted to draw one of Troy's iconic dresses.
We get some. Oh, I get to draw Troy moments now.
But it's not even the purple outfit. It's like the blue, like the turquoise dress.
Yeah, no, the purple outfit is
anyway,
yes.
Data has a dream. In that dream, he's in engineering and everyone's kind of ignoring him. And then Data's afraid, and then all the bodies are passed out. And then the Enterprise explodes in our first hilarious splash page, which is a better destruction of the Enterprise than the one that's actually in Generations. So it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, like the nacelles have flown off. In such a way where you can see the Starfleet logo printed in full color on the nacelles.
It's a lot.
And like the saucers being completely destroyed.
It's not. To be fair, it's not how a ship like this would have blown up, which makes it even better.
Right, because there's clearly there's two explosions where the nacelles come off, and then just another completely separate explosion somewhere else.
But like on the saucer, I'm looking at the page right now. It's just on the saucer. That's not where things explode on starships. They explode in the warp core.
They explode in the warp core, and they explode in the panels that you're using on the bridge.
Yep.
And Data wakes up.
Yeah, Data has a dream. He's talking to Geordi about it. He's like, "Oh, I have all this consternation about my dreams for no good reason. I've never usually had emotions with my dreams." And we're supposed to be like, that's a mystery, but the actual mechanics that explain why that's happening actually don't exist yet. So there's no reason for him to be doing this. It's just bad writing. But he does stare at his emotion chip and talk about how much he thinks he's going to put it in, or is considering putting it in, because that happens shortly after this comic in the movie Generations, which you've probably seen. And if you're like us, you hate.
And also, if you're like us, you think it's pretty good.
I don't think I'd go so far as to say it's pretty good.
Sure, but you use gifts from it a lot.
There is an amazing panel where Data explains to Geordi every other time in the history of TNG that he's had an emotion, and it just illustrates Data like laughing when he's had the emotion chip in, or when Q gave him that one laugh in season 1. Or that time he was taken over by like that like ghost criminal. It's
an amazing panel, and then they like go to the meeting room and whatever, and like we'll get to the next plot bit. But I wanted to quickly say that after the Enterprise blows up and we have an actual, it's a Star Trek story. People are walking through corridors and talking to each other, and then we go to the meeting room, people are talking to each other. It is very clear that either this comic or just comics in general are the worst medium for Star Trek. Holy shit. Like, trying to give panel layouts to what would be reverse shot scenes in the show. Oh, it doesn't work.
One of my other things I want to bring up, if you ever have the misfortune of reading this comic, or you enjoy a good time at laughing at something terrible, one of the things this comic does nonstop, to the point where they had to like put it in like editor's notes in the back, is it constantly references episodes as if like to reinforce to you, no, these people who are writing this actually have seen the show. Because I admit, reading this, I was not positive that was the case, aside from the nonstop references. But it's like a laundry list of like TV trope style callbacks to episodes you like, to try to convince you that this is also good. It is not.
Yeah, every issue ends with like a list of page 5, panel 6, this is referencing this episode, season 1 of the blah blah blah, and it's like, wow, okay, this is why do nerds who have watched so much Star Trek seemingly understand so little about Star Trek? And then we turn the page and the meeting scene happens and they're like, oh, stuff is happening. They're going to a planet called...
Well, they introduced 2 points, and I want to get to them.
Yes.
One is the point we're introduced to as the reader, which is that Picard, for some reason, is just like completely shaved head now, which no, don't do this. Now he just looks like Professor Xavier in a Star Trek uniform, and it really messes me up. Picard has hair. He's just bald.
Yep.
And then we get the plot, which is they are here to perform a security function on Damiano. Damiano is a planet that has a new ruler that is requesting Federation intervention. They're like trying to join the Federation, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the thing with that planet is that people there have 3 genders, and they're referred to as he, she, and it. And the thing that happens is to have a relationship, usually all 3 genders have to have like a relationship, and then that's how babies are born. That's how, like, it's the social norm that you're in a trio. But the new leader that's been elected only has 1 partner, and there's like a religious fundamentalist group that is not having this and is like, that's an abomination. And they are here to provide security for her inauguration so that she doesn't get murdered by fanatics. But also, this is a story about how there's 3 genders, he, she, and it. Oh my God. What the fuck? Jackson, the minute I saw this panel, I just went to you in Slack and was like, you picked the most perfect comic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I had no idea. I picked it on a whim, and I had seen like the Data walking down an empty ship and was like, fine. But then they get to the plot, and it's just fucking he, she, and it genders. But not just that. Also, religious fundamentalism is trying to assassinate leaders, which collides with, this person has the perverse thing, but the perverse thing is the normal thing on our world. Ooh, relationships, sexuality, Star Trek. And there's, in this panel where he's explaining that, there's a picture of what these aliens look like, and you can see them. They have green skin, hilarious hair, 4 horns, like Darth Maul horns or whatever, but bigger, and topping it off, crucially, and every single one of them wears this, by the way.
No, Jackson, you have to understand. The female ones have 3 horns. One of the other genders has 2 horns, one on the left, one on the right, and then the other gender just has a mono horn coming out of the forehead.
Oh, right. I'm not even going to make the joke, because it's like right there, right? It just doesn't feel worth it.
Yes, and also, the reason they have stupid hair, they have literally like giant, like super, like teased up Bart Simpson hair, but on a person.
What if Bart Simpson hair was real hair?
Yeah, but the reason they have hair that's that bad is because it's all pushed up by their terrible 90s Jim Lee head socks that everyone wears over their horns, which protrude out of holes cut into the head socks.
Which is amazing, because like this design is on the left of this panel where Data is explaining gender, and this one panel has like every single thing that this, like, seeing this panel was like, oh God, we did it. We found it. We hit the jackpot.
Yeah, no. I literally said to you, we hit the jackpot. It was so good. I'm so happy. So the actual plot is they're trying, like, these fundamentalists are trying to assassinate her, whatever. It's not really actually worth getting into. They keep trying. The guy who's the leader of the fundamentalists has basically like a religious talk show on the planet that he talks through and is bad every time they show it. I don't really want to talk about the plot stuff of this much because it's not.
No, I hate it. I hate it. Like the pages where it's just explaining the culture of this, like, planet where the genders are whatever, is just ridiculous. I hate them all. There's so many like really intense detailed pages of, oh, well then what does this faction mean, and this faction, everyone looks basically the same because they're all wearing exactly the same clothes, they've all got the same green skin. It's like I'm being racist against these badly designed comic characters because they're fucking terrible.
Yep. But their plan, they're going to try to assassinate or whatever, and then it's during the inauguration, and Worf set up a bunch of security because Worf is good, and Worf found a bomb immediately after beaming down. He's like, oh, I can tell where this bomb is. It's a lot of dumb, like, Star Trek stuff happening.
Which is great because, like, you begin this comic, and there's about 10 pages of the Data stuff, and then the exposition, and then Data talks to Troy about his dreams, and then the actual comic's about Worf.
Yes, but because Worf's there, and these like fundamentalists are like, oh, this Klingon's going to be able to actually like get something done because he's a Klingon, and we're just one-off aliens nobody likes. They devise this plan to infect the Enterprise with like this horrible psychic weapon that was once rumored to be on their planet, and what it does is like you have to like give it to a telepath, and then that telepath spreads it to everyone they come in contact with, and it drives people crazy through like dreams and doubts, which is clearly what is happening to Data, but can't have happened to Data yet because it hasn't spread yet, but it's going to happen to everyone else in the future comics because this is a bad comic. Anyway, it feels like that scene was supposed to take place in like issue 2, and they didn't have an opening to issue 1, and so they moved it up.
Yeah, because also they needed that like set up all the stuff with the ending.
Yep.
There is no sense of structure in this comic. It's kind of amazing.
Anyway, they infect a Vulcan lady who's on the Enterprise, and she's going to take it up, and everyone's going to be having bad dreams. And in the meantime, they try to kill the Chancellor, and Worf is really good at noting that's going to happen because Worf's good at his job. And so Worf decides to like stop it in the most dramatic way possible, in that he's like, I can't say anything because the amplifiers will pick up my voice. So he just like leaps up and fires a phaser where the sniper is. And then we get the amazing splash screen that opens issue 2 of everybody firing a phaser up into the air.
Like there's the security people firing phasers, but also Riker and Picard are firing phasers.
Yep. And they're all badly drawn, and they're all like Picard is just like calmly like holding his arm like straight out to his side, firing up into the air. It's stunning. I don't think Picard's fired a phaser in like 7 years.
He's about to.
He's about to. God, he. Anyway, they try to interrogate the people about the assassination, but no one's talking because they're all religious fundamentalists. And Worf, there's this amazing scene where Worf is like trying to be bad cop and like intimidate this guy into revealing something, but this is TNG Worf, so he's actually really terrible at it. And he's like, you're gonna have to wait in jail for a month for the Federation like administrator to come. And then he's like, I'm still not talking. He's like, well, we also need a Klingon to come because you assaulted someone of the House of Moog, and my brother sits on the Klingon Council, and that's gonna take 6 months. And this guy's like, whatever, 1 month, 6 months, I don't care. And Worf's like, oh, my brilliant plan did not work.
Worf has a lot of doubt.
Yeah, Worf has a lot of doubt. Meanwhile, the Federation, like everyone on the ship is starting to have like a lot of weird dreams. And it's bad.
They have done their super weapon thing. It has happened, and everyone starts to be infected with dreams. We get this hilarious scene with this Vulcan lady who she's not in the show, right?
No, I do not recognize her, and I recently watched all of TNG, so yeah, no.
Okay, yeah, so she's like a character who literally only exists to get this dream weapon onto the ship. And there's a hilarious scene where she has to like fight Worf in order to pass the test of getting promoted or whatever. Well,
she's one of Worf's security officers, and she's taking his like Klingon calisthenics martial arts class, and to achieve like the inner circle of like true badasses, she has to like have this like game of emotional chicken with Worf where they like stare at each other, and basically the first one who attacks is probably going to lose. And Worf is so good at fighting that he's able to like flap an unflappable Vulcan, which is just like Worf is cool, but also it's stupid because it's just a scene of everyone else, including Riker, who probably has not taken a combat class in his life, just like standing there like talking about how long it's going to take. And they're all in the amazing TNG terry cloth robes, of course, because it's one of the best costumes in Star Trek.
Yeah, like the idea that Riker goes to these Klingon calisthenics sessions with Troy is no.
Only Tom Riker has ever been caught dead in one of those robes.
And so you've got like people we've never seen before on Worf's security team, like talking to Riker about, oh, how long is this going to take? This person's going to stand here before they make the first move, and then the first move person will lose. But I don't think this person's going to hold. It's just fucking anime at this point. They're just reacting to nothing and talking about the mental power levels of these characters.
Yeah, but because she touched Worf, Worf is now infected and he's like a carrier for the virus. So what happens is that night, Worf has a terrible nightmare. And in that nightmare, Worf was a child playing soccer on Earth. And in that soccer contest, him and a kid both leapt for a ball, and their heads collided, and the kid fell down dead.
Yep.
So I looked at this, I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in Star Trek. I cannot believe that this happened. And then when I went to the back where it like lists all the dumb nerd references, this is a thing that happened in Star Trek, and they talk about it in DS9. Worf murdered a child on accident playing soccer when he was young.
It is from one of the most infamous episodes of DS9.
I remember really liking this episode. We can't talk specifics because I want this to be a spoiler-free episode for Destiny.
But it is it is a plot point in an infamously bad episode of DS9 that I don't remember hating as much, but this actual plot point is hilariously bad, and especially in the context of like writing a story in Star Trek that goes in before the development has happened is always so weird. I don't know how I'd feel. I was about to do another spoiler, but like this, even though technically if Worf's life had happened in order, this would have happened by this point. It doesn't feel like a thing that's honest to TNG Worf's character.
Yep.
Like going into the part of the timeline where this hadn't been written yet, even though technically it had happened to him, it just doesn't work. I don't know why you would put that in.
There's also like, I'm willing to believe that there is an instance in Worf's childhood where like a Klingon child and a human child were like just having like sport was happening and a horrible accident occurred because Klingons are like actually preternaturally strong and no one was prepared. But the thing that's illustrated in this image is everybody wearing like normal soccer jerseys and they're like teenagers. So Worf just kind of looks like Worf with shorter hair, and these kids like bump up next to each other, and then this kid is like dead, broken on the ground, like he's been like in a horrible car accident. And that's the part that is awful. Like if it's just like, oh, he had a horrible concussion and it like he like had internal bleeding and they didn't catch it and he died and everyone was like really surprised it was a freak accident. That I accept. But the way that it's illustrated is the dumbest thing.
It's like he bumps into him and then he's like, I won the football, I'm victorious. And then everyone's standing around as Worf, 2 heads taller than all these other kids, is standing there, and everyone goes, you're a murderer, you've killed him.
Yep. Also happening to Worf is he's having waking hallucinations, or he dreams up Marla Astor, who is the security officer under his tutelage who died in like a season 3 or 4 episode. There's a whole episode about them where he's like training her to be cool, and then she dies and it's sad. It's a good episode, but he sees her and he freaks out, and then he goes to talk to Troy, or he's talking to Troy, and Troy's like, you have a lot of turmoil, do you want to talk about it? He's like, no, I do not want to talk about it. It's bad dreams, don't worry about it. And then you get one panel in 4 issues of garbage that implies the thing that happened in All Good Things, which is Troy and Worf are together at this point in time, and I'm so mad it's only this one panel.
Yeah, because they don't really mention it, but he does go to her, and they have a really awkward conversation where it's like, wait, they're not confirming whether or not they are or are not together, because it's clear that there's no actual canon guideline before whether they were still together by generations.
But then they hold hands, so they totally are together.
Yep.
Anyway, some more plot happens. Worf hallucinates at the absolute wrong time, that time where a like big barrel fell on him and he broke his back, and so he's like passed out on the floor because the psychosomatic trauma is like enough trauma to like actually disrupt him. And that's when they try another attempt on the Chancellor, whatever her name is, life. And that's how episode 3 ends, or issue 2 ends, and then we open issue 3 with Deanna Troi in the turquoise dress that we talked about, recapping everything in case you jumped on board on part 3 for a good reason.
This was the year 2000. People might buy comics.
Oh, I bet nobody bought these comics.
That's not true. There are letters sections.
Oh God, you're right. There are totally letter sections. Anyway, Worf's hallucinations are getting bad to the point where like he just has all these flashes of like that time that is like baby mama died, and that time he like got in a fight, and there's just this whole page that are just awful things that happened to Worf, like when he killed Duras and bullshit. It's bad. And then he wakes up in a panic and like runs to sickbay, and in maybe the only good panel to me in this episode, he like collapses into Beverly Crusher's arms, and I just like the way it's drawn, but it is kind of a hilarious thing to have it happen in a book.
It really needs the whole page for the effect, because the panel of all the terrible things happening to Worf as he's hallucinating them, you need to know that this he's wearing pajamas.
Yeah, no, he's doing the thing everyone in Star Trek does and wears horrible pajamas.
He's wearing pajamas, running through the Enterprise as images of his terrible guilt just consume him.
Yep, that time he tried to commit suicide, that time he killed that kid in soccer.
He really doesn't like the fact that he killed a kid in soccer.
Yeah,
Not a fan of that. And then you turn the page, and then you get maybe there's a lot of things that could contend for the stupidest thing in this comic, but the way it portrays.
I know what the
empathy.
stupid thing in this comic is, and we're not there yet.
Yeah, no, that's fucking true. There's a turn coming, but just as a decision, we have shots of Troy's past as she was doing her empath thing, and she does it by having heavy rain bubbles float around her head, saying like greed, pride, joy, lust, hate, love, laughter, as she is like examining the situation, and then she has revealed that it is dreaming of these emotions, sensing abilities going away as the bubbles like become mostly dashes, and then she wakes up, and it's just amazing.
Yep. Meanwhile, as like the Enterprise crew is becoming like, the dreams are bad enough to the point where like Beverly has them in like induced sleep and they can't stop dreaming, and it's bad. Everything's going bad, and they're like, what the hell is going on? And so because the number of forces on the planet are disappearing, like the people on the planet are like, what's wrong? And someone tells them, like, oh, that sounds like this legend of this horrible psychic weapon that we used to have. But in the meantime, there's this 4-panel strip of everyone having a terrible dream, which is like Geordi having a dream of his mother from that episode with his mother, the one episode where his mother is. But one of my favorite panels is Riker just dreaming of his dad being shit to him again.
You're a total failure as a son, Will, and I want no part of you.
Yep. Anyway, as the crew is continuing to be debilitated, the guys come up and tell the Enterprise crew what they need, like how the weapon works, blah, 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 and they worked with Beverly to devise a cure. And the cure is really special. The way that this works, the way to defeat the psychic virus, is you have to put it in the mind of someone who has too much information for the virus to process, and that means you need someone with multiple personality disorder. And the problem is nobody's had multiple personality disorder in Star Trek in like 200 years because it's Star Trek and it's like this dumb utopia. But
yes, that's right. It's both gender and mental health. It's a gift from the stars. It's beautiful.
But Beverly Crusher surmises that she knows someone who has had enough life experience that would reflect the effects of having multiple personality disorder. Someone who has encountered a strong mind meld with a Vulcan, has had their entire personality co-opted by technology, has lived the life of an entire other person through like space magic, and that person is Jean-Luc Picard.
Yes. So you remember how this comic started with a Data thing, and then Data doesn't show up for the entire next 3.5 issues. And Picard has done nothing this whole time. He has like been in panels and sometimes given exposition, and now suddenly he's the center of the comic.
I want to point out that Data not only has the memories of all the colonists on Omicron Theta 3, but he also had that whole thing happen in Masks where he had the literal history and intelligences of an entire race put into his brain. Data is actually the person who should be doing this.
Yep, and it's clear that like he can be affected by this virus because that's key to the plot.
You know, so as Picard's like, you're saying I have multiple personality disorder, and Beverly Crusher says, yes, of course you do, in like the dumbest, most 2000 way of writing comics possible. Data is like dream state switches on, and he starts sleepwalking his dream, which is like go to engineering, everyone is down, like asleep, and then the Enterprise blows up, and is like going through the motions of that. So he's like sealed off the commands of everything, and the Enterprise is in great peril and is going to blow up if they don't defeat this virus right now, which means they have to infect Picard, which they do by having the Vulcan lady who originated the virus mind meld with Picard. In one of maybe the worst drawn panels of this entire comic.
And it's doubly amazing because there's two panels that are basically identical of her mind melding with him, all to make the punchline of the final panel on the page even better, as he just like goes dead-eyed and slack jaws, and the speech was like, no.
And then you get the splash screen, the splash page that intros the like chapter of this final comic. Welcome to the mind of Jean-Luc Picard. And then it runs through his personalities, which is Locutus, Ambassador Sarek, who he mind melded with while Sarek was in like Vulcan dementia, and Kamen, who's the flute guy from that one episode everybody loves. And all of these personalities have made up the part of Jean-Luc Picard, but have remained but he remained dominant until now. This is the mind of Jean-Luc Picard, which is everybody standing in a mental space arguing with each other.
And I want to make clear before we get to Picard Evangelion here, the issue is called Enterprises of Great Pitch and Moment.
Right, that does happen. Every issue has a terrible word, and that is this one's.
Yep.
So we get the ending of Planescape Torment, where you are just arguing with aspects of yourself. And the first thing that happens is they all decide to like, they find the like psychic virus, which represents as just one of these Daimyo people. And they all just like basically confront it, and it dies instantly. Cause they just stand in a circle around it and be like, we reject you. And then it falls over. But then the next thing that happens is the Locutus aspect just straight up murders Flute Guy in Picard's brain.
Which has a lot of implications for how Picard will function going forward. Like, has he forgotten those? No. Like, it doesn't address any of these things. What does it mean to be inside your own mind and have one personality murder another? This is amazing.
But that personality is then like, you've too long suppressed us, we're going to take you over. And so Picard like sits up from when he's like been like he's in induced sleep, and he sits up, and it's not Picard. It is Locutus taking control of Picard. And they all realize that he's Locutus because he basically announces, I am Locutus of Borg. And they're like, give us back Picard. And he's like, if you have to kill me. And if you kill me, you'll lose the solution to all of your dumb dream problems.
And then like someone messages Beverly, who's like, fuck, I've got to go deal with this.
But what actually happens is in Picard's dream space, they're like all standing around like, what do we do about Locutus? And Locutus now has like lightning Jedi powers. There's a scene where he shocks Sarek and Picard with lightning. Also, he's like floating in the air. It's amazing.
Yeah, and like the way the panel is, there's like the lights in the background, the four lights kind of subtly in the background of each of these panels, slowly growing to dominate until like what
actually, you forget the part that happens before that, where Sarek's like, if we join together, we can beat him. So what happens is the Sarek aspect of Picard mind melds with the Picard aspect of a Picard to join up, and if they're united, they can defeat Locutus. And Picard stands up and forces the darkest aspect of himself, which is the four lights that he had when he was being tortured by the Cardassians. And so it's Picard in his like new Super Saiyan state, like standing there dwarfed by Locutus that's like 50 feet tall, and as he's talking, he says, I will not give in. There are four lights. And as he's doing that, Locutus is growing smaller and smaller, and the lights are like dominating more and more of the panel until it's just Picard's head with the lights be above him. And he's like, you may be part of me, Locutus, but you will not break me. And then he instantly snaps awake in command of himself again, just in time to save the day.
It's something, because one, when the two parts of himself mind meld inside himself, when that happens and the four lights are there, he looks like fucking Shinzon, and the comic hadn't been released by the time Nemesis had come out, but him being fully bald and not drawn like Patrick Stewart very much, that's what I'm looking at in this panel.
You're right. Oh god, you're right. Yeah, no, 100%.
And then he like basically saved the day by remembering the most famous Star Trek quote, because for as much of this entire comic has no idea what Star Trek is, it sure watched a lot of episodes and references win the day.
And the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to Jean-Luc Picard is that time he's tortured by the Cardassians, even though I don't think that's true. And also, he's about to get a whole other definition of worst thing that could ever happen to Picard in, literally 5 minutes after this comic ends, as his entire extant family burns to death in a house.
For no reason, just in a scene.
Just to make texture. Him sad. Just so when the villain goes, time is a fire in which we burn, Picard is traumatized to the point where yes, you might have a point. That's literally the only reason his entire family
in which
dies.
We burn, and also a literal fire in which your family burns.
In which young Renee burned to death.
Oh, Star Trek Generations sure is a movie.
Oh, it sure is a movie. So Picard has the solution and passes it along and everyone's cured, blah, blah, blah. It's literally, there's been 4 comics of an increasing problem. Picard wakes up and it is 2 pages until literally everything is fixed and we're at the denouement where we opens with maybe the actual best panel of all 4 of these comics, which is Picard playing the flute because the flute guy is not actually dead in his mind, and he's just framed in with space and some dots and some squares. We will definitely post this panel because I actually think it's great.
There's this journey started because I linked to a panel of an 80s TNG comic that was just insane with its imagery, and this is the closest this 90s ass book gets to that, of just abstract space nonsense, and it's great.
And Troy's like, oh, how do you feel about all this? And he's like, well, they're just parts of me. They're just parts of me. And Troy's like, yeah, no, that's a good, healthy attitude, because there's no actual conflict in this book, because nothing can change because it's a comic book right before a movie that's very set in stone. It's been out for 6 years.
Yeah, what a weird thing. And then we cut back to the actual plot, which is the stuff on the planet, so they can. By the way, between all the things we've told you, there's an amazing amount of bullshit that you don't care about happening on the planet as their plot happens, and then they're like, oh, are we gonna? Is this person going to take their position now? No, we've got to delay it. We have to be blah blah blah. Anyway. Yep.
Now everyone saved the day, and they're all standing behind the Chancellor. She's like, we've solved all of the problems, and then Boss Nass holds up the orb, and it's great.
And then you don't even get, because this comic's paced so badly, the final page is that whole sequence. They're standing behind them, Boss Nass is holding up the orb, and then instead of it being a final splash page of the Enterprise flying away, it's just a tiny bit at the corner, as most of the page is just narration because they didn't have time to finish the comic because they put too many scenes of dreams in it.
Yep. It's literally now the Enterprise can go back to its mission. The end. There's literally just the end. It's the least Star Trek ending ever.
Now the Enterprise can go blow up.
Yep. Be destroyed by a rickety bird of prey.
What a... I hope you enjoyed us telling you about this so you didn't have to read it yourself. Please go to the gallery where the images are, because they're choice.
Yeah, you simply must.
You simply must.
So that's it. We're not planning new comics. You can come back in a couple weeks and we'll be talking about the first actual book of Mission Gamma, which is a relaunched DS9 series that we're reading. I don't really want to talk about it here because it's full of spoilers what it's about, but just check out the description. We'll talk about it when it comes up. We did have questions though, Jax.
We do have questions on the internet. Let's go find them.
If people wanted to send us questions, where would they do that? Actual written questions?
If you want to send us actual questions, you would write us at podcast@abnormalmapping.com. Just put SOS in the tagline, in the subject line. We'll figure it out. We don't get so many emails where we can't tell. It'll be fine.
Do you want me to read the questions, or do you want to read the questions?
You should read the questions.
Okay. I'm just going to use Twitter handles because I don't know everyone who hit us up. But from @_girl type, we have, why is Riker so thirsty?
Because he is a man. He is the most manly man who must be tamed by... We just fucking read him, Zadi. It's...
So the thing that strikes me is, Riker in Encounter at Farpoint, episode 1, it's clearly meant to be like the hot guy. He is like the Kirk, like Picard's off intellectualizing and Kirk's gonna get some ladies. And there's that episode where he's like just like shirtless for most of it, where they go to that planet ruled by women in like season 1. But outside of that stuff, when they chill out and like calm down in like season 2 onward, Riker doesn't really have a lot of romantic interest and is mostly just busy being like everyone's space dad. Like, Picard will give you the morals, but if you need to know what your chores are for the afternoon, you go to Riker. And that's like his whole job.
Yeah, no, he's like clearly put on the ship as he's the hot guy, but his function he's not like actively horny in a plot sense.
Yeah, like he doesn't get with many people. He doesn't seem actively that like pursuant of romance in the way that like, you know, like early Bashir is and stuff. Like there's an episode where he falls in love with that holodeck lady in season 1, but like I said, after season 1, that stuff mostly goes away. Outside of very specific, embarrassing Riker episodes, like that time he got with that alien who doesn't have a gender, but they're all ladies.
I'll never forget that fucking episode. But yeah, no, Bashir is thirsty. He's one of the least thirsty people on the ship. Data is more thirsty. Data's fully functional.
I don't think that's true. I just don't think the TNG crew is like actively that pursuant of sexual activity.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is from @CrassPants. It is Q, best deity or best deity?
Well, I would say that they're the best deity.
I would argue that Q is not a deity. Just because Q has a bunch of powers does not make Q omnipotent. And in fact, all of TNG's interactions with Q illustrate that power does not equal understanding in a way that proves that Q cannot be a deity.
Yeah. Q is mostly just, I don't know. The Q continuum is still kind of confusing to me, and it's never really sketched out in that much detail because it can't be, because they shouldn't do that.
Oh, you need to watch those Voyager episodes about Q.
Because Voyager's the one I haven't seen, and I know there's some Q stuff. I know he has a kid.
They go to the Q continuum.
You can't go. Fuck.
It's not what it's kind of exactly what you would expect given the kind of show Voyager is, and it's not at all what you would expect when I say they go to the Q continuum, and it's also stupid. But it's not as stupid as that time Cisco punched Q. That part's actually the worst thing that's ever happened with Q.
I love Q, but I don't think I like Q as like a god. I just like Q.
Yeah, Q only works as like a very advanced life form that doesn't actually understand anything about like emotional humans and is just really fascinated with Picard. Like the quintessential Q is that time Q tricked Picard into thinking he was dead and just fucks with him forever. Like that's the best Q.
Is that Trespass?
Tapestry. That's Tapestry. Like the one where Picard's reliving his academy days and he wakes up in bed next to Q and 1,000 ships were set sail. It's great.
I really don't like that episode, but for like specific personal reasons, all the Q stuff's great though.
The actual moral where like if Picard didn't get stabbed, he would just be like a boring scientist is the dumbest thing. It's like one of the worst morals in Star Trek.
It is one of the like... It is one of the most antithetical to Star Trek things to me, because to me Star Trek is about being able to like do good in very menial ways and that don't require like great man type heresy. Heresy is not the right word. Heroism. Linguistics. So the idea that you just be a boring guy on a boring ship doing boring things, you suck, is like
the thing that strikes me is this is all like everything in that episode is Q's construction as Picard's like getting heart surgery. So what actually that means is that's just Q's envisionment of what Picard's life would be like if Picard didn't get stabbed by that Nausicaan. And so like I don't like Q's like, if Picard wasn't like kind of secretly an exciting guy, then he would just be this boring man. And Picard like rejects the whole thing for the reasons that he's been in an elaborate like torture device by Q, but I don't think that actually speaks to Picard as like a person.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years, but I remember that moral being about what?
It's bad, but it's also a moral entirely devised by Q to like get Picard to realize something that Picard didn't need to realize.
Oh, sure, but that's also like a thing where you're getting the writers out of trouble.
Yeah, no, for sure. But in actuality, if Picard had like not been stabbed by the Nausicaan, he probably would have quit Starfleet and become like a teacher, right?
Yeah, Picard's Picard.
Yeah, let Picard be Picard.
No, you can't do that. You can't. I'm quitting this podcast. I'm starting a podcast about the West Wing tie-in novels. Those don't exist. Thank God. Can you
Jackson,
imagine?
our
Yes.
final question is from Siberian Pine. Do you think the TNG era Federation is actually a nice place to live? Is it a good effort in a difficult galaxy, or all a bit of a lie?
So, both, obviously, because the Enterprise itself is a fantastic place to live, but all they do is go to places that are nowhere near as nice as it and fix long-standing problems. And DS9, which is a place that is a real place that isn't just a super advanced starship, has real problems that they've got to deal with. So no, like, people are still people. Shit is still sucks.
So, but like the Enterprise is that, but even Earth's like kind of like mellow and chill, and like everyone just kind of does whatever because there's no like economy on Earth.
You can just open a restaurant because you want to.
So people just and like most people don't even eat there because they replicate their food.
Yeah, but if you want to open a restaurant, you can do it.
But also, if you want to go become like a space miner or a space farmer, a lot of people go sign up for that for some reason. Like the Federation is littered with people who decide to take like hard labor jobs in space because Earth is that boring.
Yeah, I don't. Lining up the amount of characters that have to exist in certain roles in Star Trek with the actual demographics of a universe built like that is hilarious.
But so like what that suggests is that if you aren't into just having like the kind of like pampered, laid back, whatever on Earth, you have like two main options. Like there's definitely obviously some more nuance in there. There's characters like Vash who just gets into shit because that's what she does. You can either go into the Federation and get killed because everyone gets killed basically. Like everyone we see in a high position is just the people who didn't die, because someone dies on Star Trek every week. So there's someone on every Federation ship who dies every week. So they have an amazing turnover rate. Or you can become a space miner or a space farmer or a space trader. And those people are probably dying too, because usually they're in distress when the Enterprise runs across them. So it's either live in total luxury or go out in space and die. And people are choosing to go out into space and die because humans are the way humans are.
I want to fuck and die in space.
So what that implies to me isn't that the Federation is like the most perfect utopia that can be imagined. It's the most perfect utopia that can be imagined by humans 400 years from now, or from when the show was created, which I actually feel like it's a pretty good representation of that. Like we got rid of capitalism, but people are still people, and some people just want to fucking die in space, and that's kind of okay.
Yeah, we will never change that, nor should we.
Yeah, and some people go on and become like fucking fascists in Starfleet, and that's bad too. But I would take Star Trek at its worst over the world we live in today. So,
oh, weird choice, hard choice.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you for your questions.
Yeah. Those are good questions. I like the spectrum. I like very serious Star Trek questions. I like to answer whether Riker is thirsty. He is not.
He's not thirsty.
That's it. You know where to write into us. We'll be back with a new episode. Jackson, plug you and all of your podcasts.
Oh, God. Okay. So I am at Headfuls Off on Twitter. You can find other podcasts I do. The Amory Score, where we talk about Coheed and Cambria. It's hilarious and fun. We are just about to start the next album. You can find that at ineedmayo.com. It's a reference. It's hard to explain to people who don't know what the podcast is, I guess, but it works. Anyway, we also do abnormal mapping, me and Em, at abnormalmapping.com or thebestgame.club.
That's about video games.
That's about video games. It's a good time. And I talk about mental health with Destiny on GoofZone at goof.zone. It's good.
And you can find me at em_being. If you want to support this and any of our other shows, you can go to patreon.com/abnormalmapping and support us. Even $1 helps for serious. If you donate at $5 or $10, you get other things that are good. There's not a lot of crossover with like Patreon stuff in this podcast, but if you donate at the $10 level, there's the opportunity to be on shows, and we would love to have someone on this show if you love Star Trek that much.
If someone wants to come in and yell about either a book or a very specific episode or a movie or, just a Star Trek thing, we'll accommodate you.
Yeah, we will accommodate all of the Star Trek. If you want to subject us to Abramsverse on this podcast, we'll do that.
I want to subject us to Abramsverse on this podcast.
Yes, if you want to expedite us being subjected to Abramsverse on this podcast, you can make that happen. And that's it. So please come back next time for episode 6, where we talk about a real book and some real episodes. Those episodes are Balance of Terror and Mirror Mirror from TOS. You can look it up. You know how. Just search the name and search Memory Alpha, and you'll figure out where to find it. That's it. We're done. See you out there.
Jean-Luc, Jordy Specs, mysteries on the holodecks, asteroids, triple droids, telepathic betazoids, transporter, deadly claw, visitor from LA Law, photons, no Kirk, captain has gone berserk, shuttlecraft, Council Troy, Dr. Crusher's little boy, Klingon rights, parasites, new heights, phaser fights, Data's head, Tasha's dead, Riker's hanging by a thread, celebration, transformations, everyone to battle station.
Start the series. It's the next generation on your favorite station. We didn't start the series, but when we are gone, it'll still be on. We didn't start the series. It's the next generation on your favorite station. We didn't